Hi, hello, and welcome to this episode of Geography Girl. And today I'm going to be telling you about the global history of wind and how wind, of all the weather systems, has contributed so much to human history. This episode is going to be a little different. At my heart, I am a human geographer, if you can't tell that already. You will not often find me talking about soils or rocks or volcanoes unless there is a very obvious human element. But something that really interests me is how the physical environment has shaped humanity and human history. Prisoners of Geography by Tim Marshall being the very, very classic literature to learn about this. So much of what has built human history has been by force, by empires, revolution, and by exploration. This has all taken so much human effort. Well, what we probably haven't thought of is how a lot of this has been influenced by a very quiet, real architect, which is the wind. What is wind? I've lived in Melbourne, so I think wind is really fucking annoying. The scientific explanation is that wind is air in motion, caused by the sun's uneven heating on the Earth's surface. In the context of human history, these air currents gave some regions an accidental advantage, whilst others got trapped in isolation. For some, it killed entire expeditions. For other areas, it basically created the first global economy before the word globalization was ever used. So now I present to you some of the ways that wind has shaped human history. Part one is the monsoon. If you want to talk about the oldest global trading system on Earth, you go to the Indian Ocean, where the wind has been running logistics since the Roman Empire. In summer, winds blow towards Africa from India and Southeast Asia. In the winter, the winds flip and blow back again. It is nature's own invented two-way system, a seasonally scheduled trade route that relies upon an ancient primal technology, Earth's ability to balance itself through homeostasis. People absolutely took advantage of it. Roman merchants used it to sail from Egypt to India and back, following a timetable detailed in the 1st century guidebook called the Peripheus of the Ephraean Sea. They'd leave in July, they'd ride the monsoon straight to India, hang out for a few months, buy pepper, gems, pearls and silk, and then wait for December winds to take them home. Swahili city-states like Kawila and Zanzibar became wealthy because traders stayed for months at a time waiting for the monsoon to flip, turning ports into mini melting pots of African, Arab, Persian and Indian cultures. And Southeast Asian empires like Srivijaya grew rich just by sitting on the monsoon highway and taxing anyone that came up through the Malacca Strait. Part 2, the westerlies, why Europe ended up crossing the world. Now let's hop over to the North Atlantic. There are belts of winds, the westerlies, that blow from east to west. These, paired with trade winds, form a big circular air loop known as the Atlantic Gyre. This loop is the real reason why Europe ended up discovering, quote unquote, the world, and not say West Africa or China. Because thanks to the Gyre, a European ship could sail southwest using trade winds, reach the Americas or Africa, then hop north and ride the westerlies straight back to Europe. It was basically a round trip. If you compare that with the Pacific, where you have huge distance, hostile currents, and far less predictable winds, or West Africa, where the coast pushes you away from the Americans. The geopolitical consequences of this is that the age of exploration happens. The Portuguese figure out the Volta do Mar, the return loop, and suddenly this becomes incredibly popular. The Columbian exchange explodes. Wheat, horses, and cattle go west. Maize, potatoes, and cassava go east. Silver flows into Europe, enslaved Africans are forced across the Atlantic in unmanageable conditions. And Britain, sitting right in the path of the westerlies, becomes a naval superpower. Europe wasn't magically better at sailing. Luck had a lot to do with it. Part 3, the doldrums, the ocean's deadly waiting room. Now, this is rather unsettling because there are actually places in the world that don't have wind. The Intertropical Convergence Zone, or the doldrums, sits around the equator, and sailors hate it. Now put on your best thinking cap and your Halloween costume, because you're a sailor in 1700s and it's 35 degrees. Your sails are hanging limp, the water barrels are starting to spoil, and you won't move for days, even weeks or months. So you would just sit there baking with people around you dying. And this wasn't exactly a rare occasion. This was the exact reason why many Atlantic expeditions just disappeared. Real examples of this is the Medusa in 1816, which drifted helplessly after stalling near the doldrums. Its survivors ended up on a raft, and the whole disaster becomes a painting known as the Raft of Medusa. Slaving ships were stranded too, with death rates spiking brutally. Windless strip of the equator added another layer of horror to an already horrific trade. The doldrums becomes the ocean's equivalent to quicksand, silent, deadly, and indifferent. Part 4, the wind creates winners and losers. And this is the part I love because once you see it, you can't really unsee it. The wind is therefore contributing to this global inequality. Where the wind is predictable and helpful, trade flourishes. Monsoon world had a type of cosmopolitan wealthy, and the Atlantic connected Europe, Americas, and Africa in a single loop. But there were places where wind patterns made travel difficult, such as West Africa's coast, which led to isolation from transoceanic sailing. Amazon coast, where there was a nightmare of winds and currents, and much of the Pacific, where there are long distances and complex wind patterns. Regions that were plugged into wind networks were swapping goods, religions, crops, and technologies centuries before the modern age. And so the globe could have been divided into those connected to the wind and those disconnected. Part 5, when the climate creates global infrastructure. We treat roads and ports as obvious bits of infrastructure, but for a lot of humanity, the real infrastructure was wind. Monsoon gave us our first international trading system. Trade winds and westerlies powered colonization and empire. The doldrums created bottlenecks and tragedies. And cyclone seasons determined where you could or couldn't sail. Empires rose when they aligned with the wind and stumbled when they didn't. In today's context, the wind shapes shipping emissions, airline routes, renewable energy politics, and climate inequality. So the world is somewhat still built by the wind. And that's it for today's episode. I really hope you liked this look at how wind has shaped human history. If you like this video, give us a like or subscribe for more. I bring out new episodes every Tuesday. Okay, goodbye.